is such an exciting day here on the Empowered Women Summit. We have an amazing influencer, creator, feminist, and a dear friend of mine, Alyne Tamir, also known as Dear Alyne. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
This is awesome. So I'm just going to read a little bit about you for those folks who might not know your work yet. Um, Alyne has 500 million views in just 3 years. She's the content creator behind Dear Alyne, a Facebook page followed by 3 million. She makes videos on topics that are important to her, such as travel, social issues, women empowerment, and animal rights. Now she hosts the Dear Alyne retreats, either digital or around the world, where she teaches aspiring creators the art of video making and storytelling. This is great. Let's dive in. Hello. All right. So,
Awesome. Hello. Thanks for having me
hello.
again. I love talking to you.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel the same. Okay. So, let's just dive right in. You make videos for a living. Why? Why did
Yes.
you do that? What's going on?
Honestly, it's such a lucky position to be in where my job is to make an income from doing something that makes a difference and is fulfilling. So, I've always been interested in media since I was young, but I always thought, first of all, when I was young, there were not a lot of women in media, except for as the people, reading the news or something.
Yeah.
And even then, they didn't really look like me. So it's been amazing to see kind of social media open up opportunities for all of us to create our own small platforms. Whereas before, you kind of need to be in the right group of people or really lucky to get into media. It just seemed like so clandestine. So for me, I decided to go into video just because I kept seeing these little opportunities open up. And I was like, I knew since I was young, I was like, I just have a feeling that I need to do something, but I never knew what it was. And this
Mm,
just felt like this was it. All the doors opened
it's
and I went in.
amazing. But see, even
Yeah.
just that, the doors opening and you went in, there has to be a feeling inside you, a courage, a spirit, I don't know, whatever the word is, that gives you the confidence to walk through the door. So, what was that for you? How did you harness that?
I think it was a lifetime of preparation. So my whole life, I've been all about self improvement, and I have goals, and I never expected anything of my life, if that makes sense. I genuinely expected nothing, but I still had goals at the same time. So I'd look at Oprah and be like, I love this about Oprah. I'd look at, Michelle Obama and say, I love this aspect. And I would not only admire an entire person, I would admire a specific personality trait, and then I would
Mm,
emulate that trait. Like, I want to be more bold, less shy. I want to be more outspoken, or I want to be more whatever, better business. Right, later. That's a later development, because I used to think business is masculine, so I didn't
yes.
want to do business. Right, and and slowly these years since I was young of reading books, I read a lot of books, and that has made me a much more empathetic person, and I can network with a lot more people just because I know about random things from reading. And I learned multiple languages, which, doesn't directly help with video making, but helps with connecting. Or I studied film in high school. I took the film classes available at community college. None of this made sense at the time, right? I traveled
Right.
all over when I was in college, backpacking, really cheap traveling. And back then, there was no social media, so I couldn't have ever known what job I was preparing for, right? But sometimes when you just keep doing the things you really enjoy and trying to get better and smarter and more experience, they'll come together at a random opportunity, and then you have to get that opportunity. You have
Yeah,
to grab it, snatch it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Um, so, I want to talk just so that we don't forget to speak about this. You have an incredibly diverse background, and it has certainly made you who you are today. Please tell us about your
Yes.
background and how you've brought that with you into your life. Mhm.
Sure. So my mother is an American Mormon, super Christian, blonde hair, blue eyed, uh, oldest of 8 kids. She's bossy. And my dad is Israeli, Moroccan, Jewish, the youngest of 8 kids, super
Mhm.
quiet, totally opposite humans on opposite ends of the spectrum in most possible ways. And having these two parents from two religions and two cultures, it's a very rare combination for a Jewish person and a Mormon person to get married and have a kid, because both religions are very insular side of the religion. So that was honestly something I kind of enjoyed. I enjoyed that feeling of being unique since I was little. People would always tell me I was unique because I spoke 3 languages since I was little, right? And that's not common in the US. Maybe in other countries it's really normal. But for us, it's not super common. And so I'm wondering, looking back, if having this unique layout and parents that made sure I learned those languages helped me feel special as a kid, and that gave me confidence as I got older. It also gave me anxiety, because I remember being like 6 years old and thinking, okay, yeah, you're impressed because I speak languages now because I'm 6. But when I'm 15, I'm still going to only know 3 languages, and you're not going to be impressed anymore. So I still always had this pressure on myself since I was like a child. So that may have something to do with performance.
Wow. And certainly, I mean, who you are today, I know that you don't consider yourself of the Mormon faith anymore. I know that, right. And you've had to make a lot of changes, and you've had to kind of break away over time and form your own person. So how did you do that? How did you find the strength to do that? Was it also emulating other people? Like, what was that like for you?
Honestly, half of it, again, was the situation happened, and then half of it was strength. So, for example, my divorce, I would have probably done anything to get out of being married except actually get a divorce, right? But ultimately, we ended up getting a divorce, but it was kind of forced upon me. And I probably would have just pushed to stay married because that's what my social structure taught me. But luckily, I was forced into that situation that I would have fought against, even though I didn't really actually want to be married. I just didn't want to be divorced, if that makes sense, because that was the
Yes.
worst thing you can be in religion. And so after that, that's when the strength came in, right? So that was out of my control. And the strength part was, okay, am I going to stay in this religion, or am I going to leave the religion, right? Even though there will be some negative feedback if I leave, because it's such a tight-knit community. And I had to leave. When you literally follow all the rules your entire life. I was 25 years old at this time. I never broke a rule. I never smoked a cigarette. I never did anything against the rules. I was so honest, and I literally got married in the Mormon church. You cannot do more to invest in that religion, and it still all blew up in my face. So that huge failure gave me permission to try something else. I was like, Mom, I did it your guys' way.
Wow.
It did not work for me. And now it took a couple years. I didn't just overnight tell them. I dropped little hints, like little tiny hints here and there for a few years. So they realized it on their own. So there's no big reveal moment. So it's not as shocking.
I think that's amazing. I just want to highlight that again, but it's like, I love what you just said. The failure is what gave you the freedom to push through and do your own thing. It's incredible. It's incredible. So I want to talk about other moments of freedom in your life. I mean, or I didn't mean to interrupt you if you had something to say in response to that.
No. I mean, that's why it's lucky, because no one's going to force themselves to have a spectacular failure like that, right? So I got lucky that my whole life was destroyed, essentially.
Wow. It's amazing. I think that's a good reminder for anybody right now who feels like maybe their life is blowing up a little bit. Like, what's on the other side of this? You know? Oh my
Exactly.
gosh.
It's
Oh
an
my gosh.
opportunity.
Because now, Alyne, it's you, to me, from the outside, you live a life of freedom. Like, you make your own rules, you travel from country to country. Like, it seems like that is the goal. So I've got a few questions about this idea of freedom. One, and you can answer, one, do you feel free? Like, do you feel free? Two, is it possible to be a woman and free? You can, I'll revisit if I give you too many. And
Yeah.
three, how can you relate to other women who might not have that same freedom? Okay, so that's a lot of questions. I asked you 3 at once. We can unpack.
Sure. I started typing them so I wouldn't miss them.
Oh,
Do I feel free?
yeah.
No, it's good. I was like, I'm going to remember all of these. Do I feel free? I think I feel pretty free, right? I feel very free. I'm not 100% free because I still am a little bit of a part of, I'm still tied up with some of society's expectations, right?
Yeah.
I still feel pressure as a woman to look a certain way, or I still feel pressure to achieve within my social circle. I feel, and I want to remove that pressure. So I do feel free in general, right? I can go where I want. I don't play by the rules of others, but I don't feel completely free because I still feel this social pressure to, once you get millions of followers, there's kind of an expectation you're going to get more millions of followers, right? Once you make $1 million, they want you to make more millions of dollars. And I'm trying to work internally by these things. So that's the first one. Do I feel
Yeah.
free? The second one is
Is it possible to be a woman and free?
it's I would say it's possible. I'm never going to say it's ever impossible, right? You can run into the woods and create your own social structure and never see anyone again. But it is quite difficult to be 100% free as a woman unless it's internal. It needs to be an internal freedom because
Yeah.
we will never escape, judgment and those prying eyes and what will the neighbors say type of mentality. But we can become mentally free where we are not affected by that stuff because we understand that it's coming from a deep-rooted patriarchal place of insecurity, right? So I do think women can be free. Not all women. Question number 3 was, do I think women
Yeah.
in difficult situations? No, they have. And that's the main reason. That's the main thing I care about, right? I
Yeah.
care about not the women who are missing minor freedoms, like, free the nipple or whatever. I support, these movements, but they're not the ones that I personally wish to put my personal efforts towards, because I'm more concerned currently about, the women who are still part of a dowry system, or who are getting married, the millions of women married underage, or the millions, if not a billion women who are, just getting married because they're supposed to, right? And that's really, marriage is like a form of prison for women.
Right.
So definitely no, not all women can be free at this time in history,
Yeah.
in my
Well,
opinion.
I mean, yes. I mean, I
Not
would
really
agree with
positive,
you.
but
Yeah. I mean, I obviously totally agree with you. I think that's where
do you
you
have
and
a
I.
different perspective?
No, no, no. I agree. And I think that
Yeah.
that's like where you and I have a meeting of the minds and where our passions correspond, not just on this issue, but certainly this is like such a space of friendship between us. And um, that's why I admire your work so much, because you're not afraid to shy away from the challenging conversations. And it is inspiring to watch you travel to Pakistan and Lebanon and Bangladesh and all of these places and have challenging conversations, but that are respectful. And that's what I wanted to ask you about too. Like, as we shift into this conversation, you maintain a beautiful level of respect for the different cultures that you interact with. And I don't think that's so easy. And I'm wondering how you've learned to do that and what advice you would give to others who are trying to make change in the world, but might be nervous about how it would be perceived.
How it would come off. So one thing I teach is, for anyone who wants to learn this, is a class called Taboo Topics. I don't know how long I'll teach it, so it might not exist by the time someone sees this, but it's essentially all about how to approach sensitive issues in a way that does not offend people or does not alienate people. But in a nutshell, personally, something that helps me is I meet up with the women, right? This
Mm,
is maybe not something everyone can do, is meet with a group of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 women in Pakistan. For example, for my Pakistan meetup, I had to, it's a great thing that I do women only meetups, right? Most creators do meetups for anyone, but because I do women only, so much more women can come, because a lot of girls or women, their families aren't going to let them go to a mixed gender event, right? In Pakistan and Bangladesh and other places. Sure, a lot of them will, but a lot of them won't. right? And so in these meetings, we have a closed door policy, no cameras, no recordings, and the
Mm,
women share with me their struggles, and they get really emotional, and there's almost always there's tears, and there's very, very, very personal stories of, really difficult stuff. And it's one thing reading about this stuff in an article, and it's another thing having 50 women in a room, and when they raise their hand with who's been sexually assaulted, it's, an unpleasantly high number, right? And when people are talking about, being molested by family members, right? The fact that that's common in certain areas, it's also in other countries. I'm not just talking about, there's also in Peru and other places. It's not just Bangladesh, Pakistan. In fact, that was not in Bangladesh, Pakistan. But this universal unfortunate experience of women being commoditized and marginalized, that is what helps me, is because I see them as people. When I had never been to Pakistan or Bangladesh when I was like in my teens, I just thought of it as like this country,
right.
full of people. It's so unorganized and messy, and they're not like me. They're uneducated, right? I didn't actually know anything. It's just what I saw on TV. How would I know? I was like 15, right? And then
Right.
when I grew up and I started talking to these women online, you realize they're just as capable as anyone else. They're just as educated often. They just
Yeah.
don't have the same access, right? And that is a really big thing that I think helps make my content feel more respectful, is because I genuinely understand that, you know, they are the same. They were just born in a different place. They are
Right.
literally the same, and they are open-minded and like amazing and talented, and they're trapped. And that's
Right.
such a terrible feeling, because I felt trapped. Even in the US, I felt trapped as a teenager living with my, super religious mom. I love her, she's amazing, but I felt like I was in jail with all the rules, right? And it was a horrible feeling, and I couldn't wait to grow up and be free. It was very
Mhm.
suffocating. And now
Right.
these women they don't get the option of growing up and being free. And that is like what drives me, is like that kinship.
Yeah. I think what you said, it speaks to me. When I made Honor Diaries, that was also like a shocking moment for me. I thought, like, right, it was an abstract until you get to speak to someone, and then I realized we all have the same dreams. We're taught, I think, that people have different dreams, different expectations, but it's not true. Women everywhere in the world, we can share that commonality. So I don't have so much more time with you, unfortunately. So I'd love to just hear really a generic question of like, what's next? You really, you're very successful. You have a big platform. You're influencing folks. You're teaching folks. What are your big dreams?
So, right now, that's something I've been kind of sitting on for the past year and a half, where I'm at a place where I don't really want to continue what I'm doing, but I know I still want to do something. So, that's something where I'm kind of sitting and just kind of looking at opportunities. Like, do I want to do a TV show? Do I want to start an animal shelter? Do I want to, do something with women, right? And I think a lot of that, I'm open to all of those, and I think all of them would be good options. But it's one of those moments in life, right? It's a turning point where I'm open to opportunity, I'm preparing for all opportunities, and whichever one comes and aligns, that's what I'll do. They're all good options. A lot of us
Yeah.
are really focused on finding the best option. What's the best? And I'm like, honestly, any of these would be good. Life is super long. I did all of Dear Alyne in 2 years. So every 2 years, I can have a new life, you know?
Wow.
I
Yeah,
can do a
it's
new thing.
true. It's true. I love that. There aren't rules, right? Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. Well, we're excited to follow along, and just if you, I'd love for you just in the last like minute, tell us the offerings you have online. For people to get to
Sure,
know you and
sure.
learn from you.
Sure. So the main few things that I offer are, one, a masterclass. That's only for people who want to be content creators. You want to make videos online, you want to make a difference, and you want to be serious about it. It's a 20-hour class, so it's not for the weak of heart. So that is available at dearalyne.com/masterclass. And the code MASTER50 in capital letters usually works for half off. So you can just use that code. I also teach taboo topics and a crash course live, and that's via NAS Academy. So you can go to nasacademy.com and look for my name in the courses. And those are live 4-hour courses. The other one is pre recorded. One is everything
Wow.
you need to know, and the other two are live, more just like pieces of what you need to know.
That's amazing. I didn't
Yeah.
realize you were doing all of that live. Oh my goodness. I hope you get some rest in there too. It's a lot. It's a lot. Alyne, thank you. I know you're traveling. I so appreciate the time, and let's be back in touch soon. Lots of love. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Good luck.